Oh, thanks for joining us for another edition of Parenting the Clay Way. I'm John Clay.
And I'm Travis McCabe.
Travis, of course, a green bean coffee extraordinaire co-owner there, and with the children as well. And, today is right around the time when a lot of kids are going back to school, so we wanted to hit a topic of back to schoolishness.
Right, absolutely.
Foolishness.
It
rhymes with foolishness. Of course, parents really excited for the most part to get their kids back in school.
Yeah,
right?
It's so funny. It's like, oh, you know what? School's almost here. We got plans for the summer. It's going to be so amazing. And then you're like, oh my God, just go.
Yeah, I just want some time. Right? But there's a lot of craziness that goes on too, like now having that schedule,
right,
which is harder in the morning and in the evening, trying to get them to sleep. You're much more regimented on your timing of everything, which can be difficult. Especially the worst thing about with parenting, in my opinion, is schedule changes. When they're going in and out of changes of times and places and stuff, they just resist that, and that's tough. So we're in the middle of all that, and one of the best ways to kind of ease this whole thing is to have communication with your child's teachers. And I was at a parent-teacher conference, and the teachers really wanted me to share exactly, hey, how could we best get along and improve communication? They said to me, we would love to hear from you as a parent. Just tell us more about what's going on. And if something's like, this was a perfect example. If your child is having difficulty with a piece of homework and it's taken them, let's say, longer than you think it should, tell us, and we'll see about adjusting it. They said really all the homework for fourth grade should only be 15, 20, 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. And if I see that my son's having too much trouble with a section and it's taking 40 minutes just for that section, then let's fix that. And they said they wanted to fix that. Tell me about your thoughts about how much communication you've had with teachers and what's been successful.
Absolutely. I think some of the most important personally is, especially when you're transitioning from school to school, for my youngest Adrian, when he was going to the junior high from out in 6th grade to 7th grade, changing of the school, there was a big communication we had to. There was expectations. All the rooms were different. You're literally picking them up and moving them.
Yeah.
So there was a transition that, where am I going? What do I need to do? Who's my teachers? Where am I at? I have a locker. Oh my God. Do I know how to do a combination? There's all this stuff, and the teachers were, they're instrumental in getting everything squared away for not just my son, but all the students. Mm-hmm. So I think in the early grades, going into 7th grade and coming into junior high now in Hollidaysburg, the teachers, God bless them, because you're taking all these new kids who have never experienced anything like this, and you're uplifting them, putting them in this new situation where they do have time frames now. When the bell rings, this is where you go. You are class jumping, like you had said. So as a parent, you want to make sure your child's getting there on time. You want to make sure that they're comfortable in their new situation. So I think during that time is one of the big keys of, the importance of communication. Email's always readily accessible. Contacting them. The guidance counselors are always there. Mm-hmm. And I think in that specific grade, the teachers are looking for the parents to reach out and be like, how is your child acclimating to everything that's going on? And as you're going through the grades, I think the students become more comfortable. They know their situations. They know everything that's going to be expected. Even when they move into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, you don't change much. The building changes, but you still are in that time of regiment. But as far as like grading aspects, keep on top of them. I think we've talked about it before in one of our other segments. There's so much information that as a parent we can get for our children from school. How are they doing in school? Monitor their grades, check weekly. And that builds a communication not only with the teacher if you see a struggle, but it's also rebuilding that communication with your child. You're following up with them. You're talking to them. You're talking about problems they may have. Just because they're doing terrible in a class, it might not be, the teacher themselves. It might be an outside thing. But if it is something on the outside, well, then that's something you can bring to the teacher as well. Saying, hey, this is occurring. My child told me about it, but I didn't know about it until he starts slipping in your class. So what can we do to A, help the situation, and B, what can we do, to help improve his grades? Mm-hmm. I think the communication, it's I can't even say key. It's vastly important.
Yeah, you can't do it without it. And I do think that the teachers now do really rely on that communication that's not judgmental too, to know that, hey, we're cooperating together. And working on this together. I will say that, so nowadays a lot of the kids are on these Chromebooks, and the teachers that I sat down with explained that all of the assignments are going to be sent to you. You'll have access. Apologize for that. So you can access every single day what the homework is,
right,
and then be able to reach out and say, wait, this doesn't look right, or hey, we're having trouble with this. Texts. I mean, the teachers are willing to give their cell phone numbers and be able to text and Facebook, and so all that stuff is instant. And I want to say how reassuring it is when I'm struggling with something at the dinner table with a child. I can actually get that information, that answer from the teacher within seconds.
Right.
By doing that, and they know then they've got a relationship with you that they could reach out and say. Because I notice that too. Now I get a text from saying, "Hey, we really had problems getting your son to do this or that, or we noticed this kind of a problem."
Right.
And so instantaneously, I can correct. I can get the real information from his perspective, and hammer it out so that the next day he goes to school, it's already being worked on.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that. It works. There's a comfort that gets built between, the parent and the teacher where, the teacher does feel comfortable, like saying, hey, your child, even misbehaving, is like, hey, I had a hard time keeping his attention in class today. Mm-hmm. Or, I seen that he was really struggling. It was like, I seen the lights clicking on, but he just wasn't fully getting it, he's doing exceptionally well. I feel that could move on to a different class next year. I think that comfort gets built through the communication right off the bat, where the teacher isn't like, oh, I'm not sure if I should email, so-and-so's parents, because last time, there was this and there was that, and, there was this trauma, whatever, but I think as parents, we have to be open to it. We get so used to seeing our children throughout the summer, and now we're handing them off to these teachers throughout the school year. They're there to educate, and they have rules in place, and throughout the summer our kids are a little rambunctious, and rules may not always be the most thing that they want to do right at the time. So there's certain things we have to support the teachers as well, and likely they support us as well at home.
Well, you look back and think about your life growing up and what transformed you, what gave you motivation, who inspired you, and I think you will often find that it's a teacher that inspired you to go into a particular profession. I know that it was that case for me. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the easy teacher. It was the teacher that saw my potential, challenged me to live up to that, and
Absolutely.
Then rewarded me. So I felt like, wow, I worked really hard for that teacher, and they rewarded me, and like I knew that I was where I belonged. That's the way she made me feel. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly why I got into journalism, is because this English teacher made me feel like I was really good at it.
Right.
And and I really took a lot from that. It was a springboard for me. So that communication, I mean, it's pretty great to think that we can develop that kind of relationship with a teacher to help them be an inspiration to the kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And likewise, as a business owner, I actually met a gentleman in downtown Holliesburg this past weekend, and I was getting the boys' haircuts cut for school, and we were just chit-chatting. He was an old teacher, retired from Hollidaysburg, and he actually taught economics. One of my favorite classes in my senior year of high school was economics. I just love how economics worked. And ironically enough, my economics teacher, every year you do your class project where you get merchandise, you sell it throughout the school. I was the president for that class, for that economics project. And, I ran the business, I drove the business, but it was something I was really, really, I enjoyed doing, and here I am today, along with my wife, owning a business, making it successful, very community driven, but you kind of look back on these things, it's like, wow, here it was, back in the early 90s, was a passion that I had then that now you're actually making a living off of today.
Yeah, that's great. That's nice to know that it's like building blocks.
Absolutely.
And so again, we're talking about communication with teachers. We talked a little bit about, if you aren't familiar with all the technology that's available, I think you just call the school and ask a little bit about how do I better, get along. And each teacher can have different ways that they do it, and some are going to embrace more technology and some are going to resist it a little bit, but there's always going to be good ways to interact with your teachers and share that information.
Right, absolutely. Email is always one. It's a constant, it's the day that we live in. If you have an issue, feel free to email them. I have yet to find a teacher who hasn't got back to you prompt.
Yeah. All right, well, again, the school is underway, and we're going to be getting into a lot more of the school-related topics as we are going to discover those as the kids are back into class. And how do we enjoy that? But we'll keep you updated. It's been fun sharing. We also ask you to send comments in, suggestions, and questions, and we'll get to some of those and be taking some of those questions and responding as well in the weeks ahead. Until then, I'm John Clay.
I'm Travis McCabe.
Yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.